These videos, this content is not intended for adolescents. I would highly suggest getting your children out of the room. I guess was a fan of Superman at the time. Blood sprayed out over the back of the newspaper my father was reading. I was young. What the fuck am I doing in another country whose language I can't even speak? I had no choice. I had to pull a gun on them. They forced me to pull the gun. There was 3 of them. Good afternoon and welcome to the channel. My name is Ken, and if you'll permit me, I would like to take you on 3 fascinating journeys. 2 of those being stories, one more or less a philosophy. So wait, before you cut that off, let me tell you something. These are intense. The stories you're about to hear will take you from the tops of mountaintops to the craggy bottoms. It'll take you to the edges of riches and to the utter gutters of ruin. About romances, about tales of love, about betrayal and mistrust, about the falling apart of such relationships. From on the verge of being able to create a small empire in a humble sort of way, to being on the verge of utter chaos and destruction. Together, we'll go through these stories. Some of these stories will be familiar, some won't. These are all true stories. These are all through blood, sweat, and tears. These were lived. In addition to that, we'll be going over philosophies for such, enriching your life, realizing you're far more than you think you are. You've all experienced a lot. I doubt that not. But there's things that a lot of you have never experienced, and that's a fact. Same with me, same with everyone we know. So join me on this journey. Follow me for the next couple weeks. Follow me for the next couple months. Devote some of your time. Expose yourself. Find out what life can really be like. And what life can really be like. Join me. Let's do this together. Let's go on this journey. Let's have some entertainment. We're going to have some rushes, and we're going to have some heartaches. But you know what? This is life. This is my life. This is your life. This is our life. Let's do this. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get this ball rolling. Now, during the course of these episodes, what we're going to do is we're going to toggle between 3 main topics. The life that I lived, which to me was quite the adventure. It spanned assorted countries. It spanned assorted states in the United States. It had some of the most intense drama. It really altered my life. We will also be covering the outlooks that I have on life after going through this. Philosophies, if you will. Things I've come to live by, things I'm still learning. I feel I've learned a lot. I feel there's still a lot more to learn. I assume you're with me on that. It's not so easy, is it? Not always. And when it is, it can turn around and not be. So, join me on the journey. And the last one is kind of a special treat. The last one is a story I wrote when I was young. It took me a few years to write this story. It's a fantasy story. You got dungeons and wizards and dragons and knights in armor. Epic tales of grand proportions. So what we're going to do on the channel most likely is we're going to mix the episodes up. I'm going to give you a sprinkling of the life, and then we'll get to some of the philosophical stuff. We'll get into some of the story. And I'm telling you what, that story is captivating. And it has some incredible depth to it. And I want to take you on the journey. Join me. And if you don't want one of these particular 3 fields, cut through those episodes and get to the other ones. I'll try to chop these out quickly. Anyways, I think this will be worth your time and my time, our time. Let's do this. Okay, I think we're going to start with the life topic first, my life. And that will give you a better view into the philosophical aspects and my views on life, which hopefully you share some, and hopefully I can learn some from you. That would be appreciated. So this will be a lot of long stories. I will try to make them brief. I'm trying to streamline them, if you will. This will mostly be highlights or dramatic events or life-changing events in my life. Things of note, if you will. My family derives from Palermo, Sicily. So although I've ventured many places in my life, including multiple countries, I've spent most of my life here in the United States. I'm going to go back from the beginning. We're going to do the life story chronologically. Again, we're covering the highlights and the dramatic events. So, let's start at my first one. Now, this is an event that I have no memory of. Perhaps that's for a good thing. A story that my mother told me. Unfortunately, I have the scar to remind me of that. I guess I was about 3 at the time. And the story goes, so supposedly my father was in the front room reading a newspaper. We're going back some years. I was born in 1969. We're talking like 1972. Pre-internet, pre a lot of things, pre-video game systems, I'm sure. I think I remember the first video game system. I guess was a fan of Superman at the time. And I was playing Superman running down the hall. We had a square-edged coffee table. And I guess took a Superman leap, seen if I can fly, found out I couldn't, took the corner of the coffee table in the forehead. And Mother's words, blood sprayed out over the back of the newspaper my father was reading, over the couch, across the wall, shot out like a fountain. My apologies. I have no memory of any of this. That pretty much ends that story. I don't know much beyond that. That was stitched up and sent on my way. Here I am today. Nice to meet you. My next experience almost sounds funny saying this, was to meet my first 2 friends. The first one, as I recall, was the girl directly across the street by the name of Nisi. And of course, I'm not going to give last names. But it was Nisi. I might give last name initials if I know them. And although she does mention that we had spent some time together, I sadly don't recall it. I do recall appearing at her door and knocking, can Nisi come out? As to what we did, I don't remember. My next one was a boy that lived a couple doors down from me, and we spent much more time together, what little free time you have at that age. We, ride bikes, stuff like that, just play. And one day we went into his backyard. They had a tree house and a play set as well out there, slides and stuff like that. So we go into the tree house one day, and he brings up some snacks. And so, I'm kind of keen, okay, he's got some sodas. And he says, hey, Ken, you want to try this delicious candy, right? I mean, this is a really good candy. And it's unique or something. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I want some candy. So he says, okay, well, here's the deal. It's called Zap. I think it's spelled Z-A-P-P. Look it up. I might be wrong on it. It might have been named different in different areas. Anyways, it's a hard candy and it's got powder inside it. Now, I'll tell you the rest in a minute. So he says, take 2 of these Zaps and put them in your mouth. And the idea is you want to chew them up real quickly because they're really packed with flavor. And then to make it even better, you take a big sip of soda at the same time. I'm like, okay, no problem. It sounds great. It sounds extra delicious. So I put the 2 Zaps in. I start chewing them up. I get the powder in there and everything. I take a big sip of soda, and I realize my mistake, not being familiar with the product. Zaps, the powder inside, when they interact with the fluids in your mouth, it creates a foam which expands rapidly, really rapidly. When you put two in your mouth and add soda to it with that carbonation, something in there, it explodes. And literally, I couldn't keep my mouth closed. It's foaming out my mouth and everything. He is laughing. He's going hysterical. He's having a ball with it. And honestly, I don't blame him. I think later I did find it funny. For the moment, I didn't. I couldn't breathe or anything for a brief few moments. I'm spitting foam out. And by the way, the candies are amazing. Just be careful. Now, for the next story, some of these won't be quite as intense. And some are intense. And I mean intense. Hang tight. I look forward to telling them to you. Again, just a reminder, these videos, this content is not intended for adolescents. I would highly suggest getting your children out of the room. Don't let them see it. Don't let them hear it. Not going to be much visual graphics in terms of anything disturbing. However, the words can be intense. So I appreciate that. They'll appreciate that. YouTube will appreciate that. Okay, so next in line for events. One day I was over at that same friend's house. Again, I can't recall his name. And we were playing on the slide this time. This particular day, we both had Hot Wheels, and the idea was we'd each in turn roll our Hot Wheel down and slide down after the Hot Wheel and go grab the Hot Wheel and then go back up and do it again. At one point, it was my turn to go up. And I went up to the top of the slide, and it had those metal bars. This was all a metal slide. Again, we're talking like 1972 here. It was all metal handles. And I had put my Hot Wheel down and rolled it down, and I was getting ready to slide down. So I put my hands down, and one of the bars had a gap in it where the weld had broke, and it was sticking up about that far. It wasn't going fully down, while the other one was perfectly fine. So I'm putting my hands down. Unbeknownst to me, my finger was in the gap. Not much of a problem. However, he was coming up behind me. He grabbed the handles and pulled himself up. As I released to go down, I hung by my finger for a few moments as he come to the realization I've got him pinned, and he let go. It hurt. And it hurt bad. I looked at the damage. It was hard to tell. There was so much blood. I went home. My mother was there. She seen it. She grabbed a rag. We had no car at the time. I believe my father was with car. She wraps my hand in the rag. We go to neighbor's house to find a ride to the hospital. The first neighbor or two, I believe there was no answer. Another one said they couldn't, or they didn't have a car at the time. I don't remember. Meantime, at that point, the rag that was put on my hand was filled. It couldn't contain liquid anymore. So it was pouring out of it. It was useless. We finally get to a house. I think it was Nisi's family. And they got a car. Okay. They get a new rag or two. We get in the car and we start driving there. To my recollection, they're making haste. They're exceeding speed limits. I'm more content and more concentrating on the back, on my hand, because, again, I'm filling up. The rags are becoming useless. I got half of one left. The other two are just full. And it's still bleeding like crazy. I can't stop it. We get pulled over by the police department. What timing? What timing? Even at their fastest, they've slowed us down. They mean no harm. And if they knew, but they don't. So losing a few minutes there, he finds out when he looks in the back and sees the blood everywhere. He rushes us into the squad car. I think we made more haste than we did the first time. We get there. I don't remember anything beyond that. Matter of fact, my next memories are a bit distant. I still have my hands.